I'm here with Associate Computer Science Professor Shelby Funk to talk about data security. And I wanted to speak with you because I noticed on UGA Bulletin that you teach a Computing Ethics and Society course. And I just wanted to ask you, is data security something that you guys cover in that class? What do you guys cover?
Yeah. We did cover that.
Okay.
It's not required, but I was able to do one extra chapter, and that was the chapter that I chose.
Okay, so what made you select that to add on to the curriculum?
It's an interesting and important topic.
What did you think it was important to impart upon the students about data security in terms of ethics and how it has an impact on our society?
So we talked a lot about how data is used or misused both by corporations and by the government, and what laws are in place to protect us and, with regards to our data. We talked a lot about the tension between privacy. Like, we have two things in our Bill of Rights. We have privacy, and we also have, it's not necessarily in the Bill of Rights, but it's just one thing that governments are for is to keep the citizenry safe. And there's always going to be a tension between our right to privacy and our need for safety. After 9/11, that really got impacted dramatically in terms of governmental actions. We talked about Facebook a lot throughout the semester, and that was even before we were talking about. A lot of things that Facebook has done have huge ethical impacts, and in lots of different ways. Of course, the whole Cambridge Analytica thing was brought up numerous times, but also things like in Facebook, you can have targeted ads. That's why everybody wants to advertise on Facebook, is because advertisements aren't that expensive, and because they're targeted, you're really reaching exactly the audience you want to reach. But that means that people over 40 don't see job postings, Facebook job postings. That's against the law. That's illegal. That's age discrimination. So we talked about that. And we also talked about the dangers of data mining. So I had them watch a video by this woman named Kathy O'Neill, who wrote this excellent book that I read a couple years ago called Weapons of Mass Destruction. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a really good book. And she's a mathematician, but her focus is on data mining. And she talks about how there are so many different data mining programs that are being created now, and they're all proprietary information, so you can't see how they're making their decisions.
If you were to give a brief explanation of data mining.
Data mining is, we now are in the land of big data. It's even on the cover of our most recent Georgia magazine, which I've been using as a coaster. It's totally messy, but so we have massive amounts of data, and in data mining, what they do is they take this huge amounts of data and they draw lots of connections to try and predict behavior based on the connections they're able to draw from all the data that's in these data mining programs. It's all proprietary, and everything, like our credit scores are proprietary, insurance rates are. They determine our insurance rates by putting them in a data mining program. Your credit rating is going to affect your auto insurance rate. That makes no sense at all. If I have bad credit, that doesn't mean I'm a bad driver.
Yeah.
But, it's just data.
But that gets factored in because it's data they have on you.
And the other thing about it is that they'll do a lot of stuff, they'll have this whole ton of data that's all historical data, and then they're trying to be predictive based on historical data. But we're a society with a lot of embedded racism and sexism and ageism, and so that's built into the historical data. That means that's built into these scores that you're getting.
And built into the future.
You're right, and you can't undo that because it's a proprietary program, and you can't audit it. There's no way that you can do anything about it. So I think that data mining can be really good because it can give us a lot of information. It's because of data mining that we have much better weather prediction than we used to have, because that's a massive amount of data. But they are constantly like that's something that everybody can just immediately look at and say, you did a bad job. And so they are all the time redoing it. But if they're just saying it's proprietary, you don't get to know how we did it, and you don't even get to know what your score is or anything, or it just means that it makes us as citizens powerless to some sort of black box that could be nonsensical or very biased. And so we definitely talked about that. And yeah, like I said, we did talk a lot about the Cambridge Analytica stuff. And
yeah, moving forward, what kind of decisions do you think Facebook will have to be making, or what sort of ethical dilemmas will they be facing? And do you have any thoughts on what changes need to be made?
So I think they've made some changes. I think they claim that they've made more than they've made. So, in that whole congressional hearing, they're like, you can already do that, Senator. And yeah, there are things that we can do in terms of being able to see our data. I think it's very difficult to actually delete our data because it's all on distributed computers, and a lot of the data has already been downloaded, and they have no control over as we know from what happened at Cambridge Analytica. Once somebody downloads the data, then that person at Cambridge University inappropriately gave that data to somebody at Cambridge Analytica. That was definitely not in the contract, but Facebook had a fault there, but the biggest fault was that the Cambridge University professor gave this data, which was used which was acquired for research purposes, gave it to somebody to use it for business purposes, for making a profit, and for manipulating the public. I think that Facebook also has already made the changes that, first of all, you can't get friends of friends data anymore. That change was made before, that data was gathered in 2014. Right. So I think they stopped getting friends of friends data in 2015, so that's already been done. I think that things are not as transparent as they claim. They built their business on, we're collecting data, we'll give you data, and you give us money, right? That is, when one senator is like, how do you make money if you don't charge? And it's like, well, we advertise, but it's more than that. We are giving you data so you can advertise really effectively. And now they're like, oh, we never realized. And I think this is a problem in the tech firms in general. You make a new, and we did talk about this issue I'm about to say in my class too, you make a new gadget, and you need to think about, what's a weirdo going to do with this gadget, right? So you put a webcam on a laptop, and IT people are going to start spying. There actually was a case, and it was a while ago, where schools gave laptops to students, and a student almost got suspended for taking drugs, and they showed him a picture. He's like, how did you get a picture of me in my bedroom? And it was like, and he was actually just eating Mike and Ike's just to make it worse. But, they created the webcams thinking, oh, this is great. People can start having, Skype conversation. It was before Skype, right. But they I'm sure they had something Skype-like in mind. But of course, that also means that if you don't have good controls over the webcam, people can start spying, and that happens too, right? And I feel like tech companies in general have not been willing to put their mind in a creep's perspective, and how can what I'm doing be used by a creep? And Facebook acts very innocent, but really, if they had tried to think like a creep, and when you do an invention, you should try to think like a creep. Right.
They value innovation over concern for the repercussions for the everyday person.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you see, moving forward, security being an issue on the forefront in this field? Do you see any legislation moving forward, because we're having this moment with Facebook?
Yeah, I think there will be regulation, not with this Congress, but within 10 years there is going to be regulation on social media issues. I'll be surprised if they don't start having some kind of auditing for data mining programs, that they can't be a black box like that. Obama did have some, like that woman, Kathy O'Neill, who wrote that book, Weapons of Math Destruction. She actually worked for the Obama administration on data mining issues. I don't know if Trump has something like that going. I'm not aware of whether he does or does not. I think that in time something's going to happen that's going to be like a huge outrage based on a decision that was made because of data mining that is going to, and Cambridge Analytica, that was a data mining program, but I think that there's so many distractions right now that I don't think that's going to be it.
In our current political environment,
right.
It's hard to focus on.
And Cambridge Analytica is so tied up with the whole Russia thing that it's going to be all about, because Russia exploited Cambridge Analytica. So I think that's what they're going to focus on.
More about partisanship rather than the actual security issues.
Right. And I mean, there's so many different kinds of security issues, but I think that some of them is how data mining is done, and is it, when this information is mined, are the results good and unbiased? I think there needs to be some kind of oversight to make sure that any data mining that is done in a way that can be, that whoever is doing it can argue that it is unbiased decision making and not being used for manipulative purposes. I think that will happen eventually, but we're in gridlock now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been in gridlock for the past 12 years.
Right.
So
Eventually we'll just reach some sort of breaking point.
Yeah. Eventually things get done when a crisis happens, and I'm sure that a crisis will happen.
Yes, I've seen basically that there's just, in the past, historically, there's been very little political payoff for any legislators to push that forward, because they don't really have constituents calling for that. And then I think we're maybe finally reaching a point where people are getting frustrated with the decisions being made, and are finally reaching a breaking point where people are going to start asking for this.
I mean, people were very pissed off with was it Experian, that Experian hack? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
I think it was 2 years ago. That's one of the credit rating agencies, and they got hacked, and millions and millions of people had their credit data hacked, which means they are totally easy victims for identity theft. And the thing about having all of this data is, if somebody hacks, we got hacked. The UGA had all of our social security numbers and information available. Somebody posted it on an unpassword protected. You had to actually know the web page. There was no link to it, but it was not password protected.
Yeah, which is a nightmare.
I mean, it happens all the time, everywhere. It happens all the time, and and people do get angry about it, justifiably, especially if as a result of people's carelessness. If your identity gets stolen because of some company's carelessness, that's really not okay.
Well, thank you so much for taking time. I won't take up any more of your time, but it was really nice to meet you. Thank you.